So, after a couple weeks of having to work and do all kinds of other crazy stuff, I'm finally back to trying to recap the rest of House of the Dragon. Yes! I'm a couple episodes back, so you have to bear with me. First of all, can we start with little Helena and her cryptic, weird stuff she was saying about Aemon getting a dragon?
You will have a dragon one day.
You'll have to close an eye.
That girl's gotta be a witch or something, I'm telling you.
What makes you think she's a witch? Well, she turned me into a newt. A newt. We got better. Burn already!
So this episode was bananas, for real. Like, the knives came out, literally, and just all kinds of madness. Oh, and I somehow edited out the part about Viserys having his arm amputated in my last video. I have no idea, maybe I was moving too quick and took that part out, but yeah, I did notice that. Since I sort of skipped them last time, I'm going to start off with Daemon's girls, Baela and Rhaena. In the last episode, they had to deal with the death of their mom, which was pretty messed up. And the younger one also had to deal with the fact that her dragon's egg never hatched. And that was tripping her out pretty bad, to the point where she thought she'd get thrown out of Pentos just because she wasn't a dragon rider. Those two are devastated when she dies, and they get a little comfort from Rhaenyra's kid, Jace, but we'll have to see where that goes. I have a feeling they're going to get pretty close. As far as Daemon, it's always hard to tell with him just what he's feeling. I'm pretty sure he loved her, pretty sure he's upset, but he doesn't show it in a normal kind of way. Lucerys has a conversation with his grandfather, Corlys Velaryon, and he kind of pulls a Jon Snow on him when Corlys starts talking about him eventually being the heir to Driftmark.
I don't want it.
And Lucerys doesn't want that because that means everybody's going to be dead if he's the heir. We get to see Daemon's girls are really close with their grandmother, Rhaenys. And they're definitely fairly close, at least to their cousins, because whenever they see somebody fly off on Vhagar, it's the two boys that they go and wake up to try to confront the thief, who turns out to be Aemon.
It's him.
It's me.
Now, Rhaena takes this really badly because she figured Vhagar would be her dragon since that was her mother's dragon. Aemon's kind of a dick, like most kids are at that age, and it kind of starts a little junior royal rumble. Now, that fight is something that all the book readers, myself included, have been waiting for. Because that leads to a few choice words about them being bastards, and then that leads to Aemon getting his eye cut out. That is absolutely the point of no return in this story. Picking up with Laenor Velaryon, we basically find him just mourning his sister's death in this episode. He's just standing out in the surf crying, and he's basically fallen apart completely at this point. Once his buddy Carl comes and snatches him out of the surf, we don't even see him again until after the whole fight with the kids and everything towards the end of the episode. With his sister gone and him feeling like he failed to protect her and that he's failed Rhaenyra because of all the problems she's having about her, well, their kids, he pretty much is just done. He gives up on everything that he wants and tries to double down to back up Rhaenyra and do his best as he can for her. The thing is, Daemon and Rhaenyra have their own little plan to try to give everybody pretty much what they want, and all Laenor has to do to help them is die. That brings us around to Corlys and Rhaenys. They are devastated by the loss of their daughter, and Rhaenys especially. Corlys, I don't know where his brain is exactly, but he seems really hung up on the family name and legacy as opposed to anything else. Corlys is the one that actually sees his son wading into the ocean and sends his boy Carl down there to go retrieve him and take him off to bed before he does something stupid. See, he's still really bitter that his wife wasn't chosen as the heir to the Iron Throne and Viserys was instead.
One day, lad, all this will be yours.
What, the curtains?
She did have the better claim, apparently, but she doesn't care anymore. She's gotten over that completely, and he won't let it go. And as far as Rhaenys, despite how strong she looked at the funeral, she's crumbling inside too. She actually blames Daemon for not bringing her daughter home to have the baby, and Corlys just backs Daemon up. So it looks like we're starting to get a bit of a split in this family. Rhaenys also wants Baela, Daemon's daughter, to inherit Driftmark instead of Rhaenyra's son. And that's because she's actually of Valyrian blood, and everybody knows that Rhaenyra's kids aren't.
That is a Slavic baby, a Viking from Iceland. That baby got 730 as a credit rating right now as an infant.
Now, when the knives come out after the kids fight and everything, it's actually Corlys that comes up and stands tall in Rhaenyra's corner. But after they snatch Laenor's body out of the fire, I'm not really sure where loyalties are going to lie after that, because it seems pretty obvious that Daemon and Rhaenyra had a lot to do with that. And in this one episode, he's basically burying both of his heirs. King Viserys and Queen Alicent. We're picking up with them at the funeral at Driftmark. Alicent's got about 2,000 dirty looks in her bag, and she tries pretty much every one of them out every time she sees Rhaenyra somewhere, along with Sir Butthurt Kristen Cole, who really, really seems to hate everybody. Things are only really getting worse, but as usual, the king tries his best just to go for peace and to get everybody to just relax and get along together. I really do feel bad for this guy. He offers Daemon a place back in King's Landing, and Daemon pretty much blows him off, saying he doesn't need anything from him, and bails on the funeral. With all this drama and his health getting worse, he decides to go to bed early, and when he passes the queen on his way to bed, he calls her Emma. So I'm a little concerned that maybe his mind is starting to slip too, or that he's just hung up on his first wife, who he really, really misses. Every episode is just like one step closer to the grave for our boy Viserys. And after the Junior Royal Rumble, the poor man is stuck in between all of that too, and just pretty much loses his mind, has a fit, and tries to make everybody apologize and get along, even threatening to start pulling tongues out when it comes to the legitimacy of Rhaenyra's kids. Now, the kids actually being Strongs is pretty much well known to everybody, but even at this point, the king won't hear it. All he wants is for everybody to relax. Kind of like my dog. So it's at this point, after everybody's done yelling and freaking out, when the king decides that the argument is over and the situation is closed, that Alicent snaps, snatches up Aegon's dagger from the king, and goes after, kind of goes after Rhaenyra's son to take his eye out. But she ends up stabbing Rhaenyra, or at least slicing her across the arm in the process.
Now stand aside, worthy adversary.
'Tis but a scratch.
A scratch?
Now the whole time this is going on, nobody knows where Laenor is, the kid's father. And Daemon is there, but he's doing his best to hold up this door in the background until Alicent attacks Rhaenyra. And then the only thing he does is stop Kristen Cole from getting in the way. After all this craziness, we kind of get a minute to breathe, and we remember that Otto Hightower's back, Alicent's father, and he's hand to the king again, after the death of Lionel Strong. What's really crazy is, for once, they're actually really starting to seem like they're on the same page. It's obvious that all he wants is for his family to ascend to the Iron Throne. But for the first time, Alicent really seems like she's a lot more down with that idea. Now for Rhaenyra. She's really put back on the defensive through this whole episode. between the mad stares that she ends up getting from Vaemon Valerian during the funeral, the obvious fact that Vaemon wants nothing to do with her or her kids' claim on Driftmark, and Alicent and Kristen Cole and Otto all trading turns giving her ugly looks, it's pretty bad because she's there pretty much all alone. Her husband Laenor is useless standing in the surf, and Daemon's sitting around the corner kind of just being a dick, as Daemon is wont to do. Not only that, but her and her kids can't even mourn the death of Harwin Strong, their actual father, because of how that would look. After the funeral, Daemon takes a long walk with Rhaenyra, and they kind of talk about things, go back and forth more or less on who's had the crappier time of everything, and then, well, they pick up right where they left off at the brothel all those years ago. After some good old Targaryen incest, they find out about the fight between the kids and rush over there to try to see what's going on. Rhaenyra, of course, backs her kids up immediately. Daemon does not. Rhaenyra was also really happy to see the king back her kids' legitimacy up by trying to put a dead to the whole argument about them being Targaryen or strong. But Aegon and Aemon make it pretty clear for everyone that everybody already knows who their actual father is.
Everyone knows. Just look at them.
Now, when Alicent comes after Lucerys to try to take his eye out in repayment for Aemon's eye being cut out, Rhaenyra gets in the way, and they have an interesting little struggle between them right before she gets slashed across the arm. And that scene of her getting stitched up, yeah, fake or not, she handled that like a G. That just looked like it hurt. She has a long talk with the broken man that is her husband, and it's kind of sad, but he does at least try to back her up. There's definitely affection between them, not necessarily love like they should have, but there is affection between them. He chooses to give up everything that he wants in order to try to help her out. After their talk, Rhaenyra watches the king's ship sail away, with Vhagar flying in tow behind him. She talks more with Daemon about needing him against the Greens. During this talk, they seem to set their plan to kill Laenor and marry each other into motion. Together, she has a lot better claim on the Iron Throne, and it can give her a lot of protection against Alicent, or at least that's the plan. But all that's going to come at a heavy price, because that means Corlys is going to lose both heirs in this episode. So we get a ton of dragons in this episode. I'm not even sure just exactly how many there are going there. There's like 5 or 6 of them. That's pretty sweet. We get to see Vhagar in all of his just absolutely ridiculous size. And Vhagar and Aemon really are the stars of this episode. I mean, let's be honest. His little midnight Grand Theft Dragon action was pretty much the coolest thing we've seen yet. Although he is way too calm about trying to steal that thing. I mean, it's the size of a small mountain standing next to him. So, I guess congratulations to him for not pissing on himself. And just remember, if you're going to ride a monster randomly at midnight, buckle up. This may be important later.
And knowing is half the battle.
Aemon losing his eye in the first place was a big turning point that a lot of people were waiting to see. I know I was. And getting to see him take off on the dragon and just basically jack the thing in the middle of the night. Yoink. It also really makes you want to pay a lot of attention to Helena because of her little comments like how he was going to have to close an eye in order to get a dragon. The line between the greens and the blacks is clearly defined now. And our poor king, who some people still think is weak, and I really think is getting stronger by character as we go along, the poor dude's just getting annihilated physically by the stress of his family's fights with each other. It is really sad to see, but I like that they've put him in such a tragic light in this story. It didn't really come through that way in the books. Honestly, Viserys' whole family does not deserve him. I thought the cool little secret Targaryen wedding was an awesome touch. That was very interesting, and also something that Helena had talked about if you listen close to her babbling. And I mean, we almost had a wedding without horror. Well, I mean, you know, except for that guy. Probably sucked a lot for that guy. And also, I won't lie, when I first watched this episode and we got to the end, I had to stop for a minute because I was like, that's not Grey Worm. So next week, we're going to get one more time jump out of this. I think we're going to get a little deeper into, like, the feelings between the families and everything. And we'll just see where that leaves Viserys. If he's just, like, a skeleton on a stick or something. I feel so bad for that dude. Oh, and maybe we'll also finally get to see if Kristen Cole ever ages, or if it's all going to catch up with him at once in, like, season 5 or something, and he's just going to turn to dust in front of us. So if you enjoyed this, which I hope you did, like, subscribe, and even if you didn't enjoy it, tell me what I screwed up on in the comments. I dare you.
Joke's on you, I'm into that shit!
Anyway, until next week, and however many years later that episode's set.